still very young into the NBA season, and while the Chicago Bulls have shown both the potential to be good, they've shown the potential to be downright terrible as well. And on today's episode, I want to talk about it from this standpoint. How many things have to go right for the Chicago Bulls this season to really maximize on their potential? What even is their max potential? We're going to talk about it all and more on today's Chicago Bulls Central.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. I want to talk about the Bulls and their max potential, right? How many things have to go right? First, you have to establish what is the max potential for the Chicago Bulls. While a lot of, betting sites and insiders or whatever you want to have it, had the Bulls at about 28.5 wins, that was the mark for the Bulls on the low end, right? I personally think that this is a team coming into this season, 30 to 35-ish wins. You got some Bulls that think that this team can get up to 40 wins, right? Now, some people even think more than that. I've seen some crazy, and I don't know if it's just trolling in the comments, but I've seen some people even say consistently in the comment section, oh, this Bulls team can win 45 games. I don't know what they're smoking, but listen, hey, we'll throw that out there as well. How can the Bulls get there? What has to happen right for the Chicago Bulls to maximize any type of potential that they have here? And I think through the 3 games of what we've seen so far, and I want to be clear here, everything that I mentioned here can very well change. The season is way too early for us to say adamantly who exactly this Bulls team is going to be over the course of the season. They're still trying to figure out a lot of things, but everybody kind of has. We can use some data to look at, right? One thing so far is that I think you have to look at Nikola Vucevic keeping up his play. Vuce has played damn good throughout the season offensively. We know Vuce isn't great defensively, and he's never going to be. All those criticisms, like, they're going to be there because Vuce isn't a defender. He's never going to be a defender. He's never been a defender. He's not going to. He can be active, and there are some one-on-one matchups that he does pretty damn good against when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. But overall, hoping Nikola Vucevic is going to all of a sudden be this plus defender. If you are, just stop. He's not going to be that. But Vuce has to keep up his level of play. 20 points per game for Nikola Vucevic, 11 rebounds per game, 2.3 assists, and he's doing it on pretty decent efficiency as well. Not amazing efficiency, but pretty damn good efficiency coming from Nikola Vucevic so far in this young season. 53.7% from the field overall, 53% from three-point range as well. He's also getting to the free throw line almost 4 times and hitting 3 of those, 90%. Vuce is being pretty damn effective on the offensive side of the ball, and I think you need that because you need that third scorer, especially in this offense, which we'll get into in a minute. You need that third scorer. And, hey, because of Coby having 2 very bad shooting games so far, he's basically been the second scorer. And, at times down the stretch, we have to rely on Vuce's offense. So until somebody else steps up consistently enough offensively, you're looking at it having to be Nikola Vucevic still has to keep up his level of play. You need that. And the question is, you have to ask there with all these things is, can you trust Vuce to stay at that level, right? You know that Vuce is always going to average about 18 and 11. That's not the problem. The efficiency is the thing that we need from Nikola Vucevic because with Vuce hitting or getting these numbers at the percentage he's getting, that does offer more opportunities for other players, right? That does get other players in the game as well. So, you want that. And so Vuce has to keep that up. But LaVine and Coby White have to be more consistent. And Zach LaVine, while throughout the games his numbers has been pretty good throughout each game, it's been a tale of 2 halves in 2 of the games. Well, really all 3 of the games, because even in the game against the Bucks, Zach LaVine didn't have a great second half at all. Now, he still did some things that contributed to winning, even with going 2 for 8 in that game. But we're seeing the Zach LaVine that in first and second quarters, in second halves of games, like, he's just not been the player that he was in the first half of the game, whether that's the defense adjusting to him, not having a secondary scorer like Coby White stepping up in those games as well, where in some of those games. So you need that. And also with LaVine, the turnovers. And we'll talk about the turnovers overall, but LaVine averaging the turnovers that he has at 5 per game, you got to be better than that, Zach. We need you to be better than that. Now, he's had 2 games of 7 turnovers. So hopefully that it's going to average out, right, and regress back to the norm to where he's not going to be as good at, not turning the ball over as much. But We need a Zach LaVine that's more engaged. And Coby, we need Coby to be better, right? Yes, he's averaging 18 points per game, which isn't that much lower than what he averages, about 1.7 points less than what he averaged. But when you look at Coby's percentages, 42% from the field so far, 25% from three-point range, that's not going to cut it. Now, I do like the fact that Coby's getting to the free throw line almost 5 times per game. I like that, right? Keep that up, but you got to shoot the ball better, Coby. This isn't one of those seasons where it's like, oh, well, DeMar's gonna step up for us in that third quarter, and he's gonna be one of the reasons the Bulls score a lot of points. That's not there anymore. DeMar DeRozan isn't walking through that game to be the stabilizing factor anymore. So we need a more consistent Coby White. So for the Bulls to get to that 40 win, to that max potential, it means that Coby and Zach got to be on. They got to be on. The margin of victory for games where Coby White has like 10 points on bad efficiency, our margin for victory is not what it used to be because we don't have the DeMar DeRozan who can get to the free throw line. Even with Zach scoring pretty damn well, averaging 24, almost 25 points per game so far on the season, he doesn't get to the free throw line as much as DeMar DeRozan. He doesn't score, in the clutch as much as DeMar DeRozan. So we need better than that. Now, I do like the fact that Zach's shooting 47% from three. We're going to need that. Keep that up, right? But we just got things that we definitely going to have to improve drastically on for this Bulls team. And so that's another thing. And then the Bulls have to be nearly perfect on offense. Now, maybe this changes. But when you look at that win against the Milwaukee Bucks, if we're just being clear there, you got almost a perfect game of balance. And yeah, you won that game by 21 points, which is great. I mean, by 11 points, which is great, right? That's good. But we know that the Bucks' limitations there, and even with the Bucks and how limited they were defensively, we needed 6 players to score in double digits. We needed 3 20-point scorers, one of those being 35. And so it's just, you got to ask yourself, the stuff that we've seen from the Bulls so far that they've been successful at, are those really sustainable things, and how difficult is it going to be to sustain, right? That's what you also have to ask when it comes down to it as well. So, and defensively, the Bulls just got to, for the Bulls to maximize their potential, they just got to be consistent with their execution defensively. I know I keep saying that, but that's really what it comes down to. This is not going to be a great defensive team. We're going to get into some of the numbers here in a second, right? But they're just not going to be a great defensive team. So you have to lock in defensively as far as just giving that consistent effort. If you fall asleep defensively, the team's going to absolutely get cooked, right? So that's something. And we need better from Dosunmu scoring-wise. He's been solid defensively. Not taking away from Dosunmu defensively at all, but we need him to be better defensively. We just do. Because if you don't have that, it's going to blow up in your face. So, you got to be there. We need Dosunmu to be that 6-man off the bench that could be that player that we also can score some points for. We'll get more in the Dosunmu conversation again towards the end of this show. But let's talk about the Bulls. How good has the Bulls offense been? The Bulls so far are leading the league in pace. They have 110.33 pace, and they're also getting the most possessions per game at over 100 possessions per game. The Bulls are doing what they need to do, right? But then when you look at the efficiencies number, the Bulls are 13th in offense to start this season. 13th. And again, to be middle of the pack offensively when you're running that type of pace, a lot of that, again, you got to look at turnovers. Turnovers definitely affect that. You can't say that they don't, right? And so limiting turnovers is going to be really important to kind of understand exactly how good this offense can be. Until we see a consistent run of no turnovers to really see how this team can look, it's always going to be like, yeah, we're ranking this, but what do we look like without turnovers, right? Or are the turnovers going to be a story of the team this season, right? Which we hope not. But they're averaging 113 points per game. In the NBA, again, 13th around that area. They're the 20th best shooting team in the league with 43% field goal shooting percentage. You got to be better than that. Some of these teams are going to come down to earth. We have more teams averaging over 50% overall from the field than what's going to maintain in the season. So look at that. That'll come down. We're 3rd in the NBA three-point attempts and 8th in the NBA in three-point makes at 15.7 three-pointers made per game. Right? That's solid right now. The 102 offensive rating, though, for the Bulls, that's 28th in the NBA. So despite the Bulls getting up more three-pointers, making more three-pointers than what they did last year, averaging over 113 points per game, the Bulls' offensive rating is just not that great. Now, the turnovers drastically dropped that, right? And the Bulls are the second worst teams with turnovers in the league. They're averaging the second most turnovers. Only the Toronto Raptors are having more turnovers than the Bulls, which is crazy, right? And so it's not – we've seen it, right? And a lot of people the fast offense is exciting to watch, right? But like I said at the start of the season, playing fast doesn't necessarily mean more wins, right? It means more possessions. It means more times more opportunities to get more players, more touches and involved in the game, right? That's all things that could work out for the team. It also just fits your roster, right? But you got the things, they're playing a little bit too fast at times. Coby White saying this, kind of playing too fast. Like we want to play fast, but we're playing too fast. I feel like we've contributed to a lot. I feel like we contributed to a lot to the loss as a team, and I feel like anytime a team goes into a game and you got 26 turnovers, you're probably going to lose. Zach LaVine as well echoing that, says we have to do a better job, especially myself. We have to be better. So while the offense is playing fast, while the offense has changed just through 3 games, and if you even add in the 5 preseason games, the offense has changed. Got to be more consistent when we face adversity, right? We got to continually move without the ball, and we can't play uncontrolled and fast. We got to be better at that. Now, how has the Bulls done defensively, right? The Bulls have a negative 6.7 point differential. We've given up more points than what we've scored, right? We've given up 359 points so far in this game. We have a defensive rating, though, that's actually pretty good at 7. 108.8 defensive rating. Take that for what you will, right? The Bulls are doing some things defensively that you can look at and say, hey, these are things that could help our team, right? But we got to be much better, like in the execution of it. So I'm glad that the Bulls have the 7th best defensive ranking in the team because it shows, hey, that this Bulls team can do some things defensively. Again, we're not going to be great at any one thing, but we can start improving some things, right? So defensively, I would say this: the Bulls have been better than what I've expected already defensively. Now, they still have their defensive lapses, absolutely, but that is why the offense has to be as close to perfect as it can for this Bulls team to win. And so that gets us to this final thing in this topic. The Bulls maximizing their potential. Let's say it does get them to 40 wins. That maximized potential is what? A first-round exit in the sweep, right? Like, what are the Bulls really getting out of maximizing their potential? So when you have your Bulls fans that are saying things like, well, this Bulls team should be focused on keeping their top 10 pick. That's why you have that thought process right now. Because do you have the Bulls beating the Cleveland Cavaliers in the playoff series? Do you have the Bulls beating the Boston Celtics in the playoff series? Do you have the Bulls beating the Orlando Magic in the playoff series, the New York Knicks in the playoff series? Right? And the Milwaukee Bucks are 1-2 in the season so far. I don't expect them to stay there, but we'll see, right? This is a year where the Bulls maximizing their potential. You don't just want to look at it in this year. You got to ask yourself, okay, let's say the Bulls do maximize their potential this year, and they get 40 wins, and they don't get to keep their top 10 pick. The question you then have to ask yourself is, how sustainable is that going forward, right? Because if you want to stay there, that means that you have to hope that your young players are going to have yet another year to go to because you're not adding any young talent. You got to hope that continuity again, right? The Bulls maximizing and getting 40 wins this season would mean that the Bulls would then have to bet on continuity again for the Bulls to really hope that they're going to go far. Do you want to see another 2 years of the Bulls preaching continuity, right? Those are the questions that you have to ask yourself. And so the Bulls don't sit in the place right now where, listen, everything's not clear. We're 3 games into an 82-game season. We got 79 games left to play. There's going to be a lot of stories still left to be told on what this Bulls team can and will be. But, it just raises some questions. And AK, first call, I got some quotes from AK here that gets us to our next segment. Right now, AK still believes in Billy Donovan, and he still believes in the new offense, saying this: we agree with Billy. We sat down before the season, and we talked about that, and the identity and the style of play that we're trying to play now is how we want to play moving forward. Again, I would like to establish home court advantage. It's been really hard for our guys to play in this building, and I'm not sure why. We're going to see what this team can do, and hopefully we can progress with this young core, with Ayo, Coby, Patrick, and Adam Modest, and Dalen and Julian. All those guys are pretty young, and they're still trying to learn to play together. And that is the Bulls team, and you see that through what's doing. Right now, Julian Phillips is right there with Jalen Smith and Ayo Dosunmu with some of the first players off the bench for the Chicago Bulls, right? And Billy Donovan is playing his young guys more than he's like. Torrey Craig hasn't checked into a game yet, right? Javon Carter, I think he did check into a game, but he hasn't played a lot of minutes. Chris Duarte has not played a lot of minutes. Like, this Bulls team is betting and doubling down on their young core, which is something that they said that they wanted to do and we thought that they wanted to do coming into this season. And so in doing that, if this Bulls team does exceed expectations and ends up losing out on their pick, you better hope that all these young guys got another year to go to. You better hope that Memphis Vucevic starts showing signs of being a star by his second year, because you're not going to have that young talent to add to. Now, the benefit of it as well is that the Bulls own all their picks outright after the Spurs pick is finally settled. So if the Bulls do take a step back in subsequent years, you do have your own picks then outright. You don't have to worry about protections and all of that, right? So the Bulls are going to go for it this year. And AK's trust in Billy Donovan and trust in trying to establish a play style and an identity is something that has come back to bite the Bulls in the ass before. The question is will it do it this season? And that's the ultimate question you have to ask yourself, is maximizing on your potential now, where does that really put you in the future in this league? And so if you maximize on your potential, great. If you exceed 40, if you get 40 wins, yeah, that's great for this season, because that's not what a lot of people expected from the Bulls this season. But you got to ask yourself, at that point, are you then happy with 3 more seasons after that of 40 wins, or maybe getting worse? And that's why the Bulls have to really be calculated and have to let where this roster is tell them and inform them on what the next step could be, right? Because if you're 30 games in and we're talking about a team that's 10, 12 games below 500, that max potential ain't coming, right? That max potential ain't coming. So, we'll see. And I understand why the fans sit in 2 different areas. I understand where the fans say, listen, I don't want to see tanking. And again, let me be clear. This Bulls team is not tanking. They may just not be good enough, right? That's the thing in this. It's not either you're tanking or you're competing. You can be competing and just not be good enough and still wind up keeping your top 10 pick. And that's where the Bulls are right now, is that, hey, they're competing. We may just not be good enough. And then we may have our pick. So, that's something to look out for. We'll see what happens, man, overall. But, we do need the Bulls to be better. I do like that we are relying on a player like Julian Phillips, who is 3-point shooting, starting to round out, things like that. And, Memphis Vucevic, I think he needs more time. We'll see. But he's a raw prospect. He's not going to play 12, 15 minutes right away. They're not going to do that. But, we'll see what happens with Memphis. But another conversation that's been brewing a lot with Bulls fans is Dosunmu. We got a lot of voicemails on Dosunmu starting over Josh Giddey. And here's what I'm going to tell you guys. This is going to be a little bit surprising. I understand why Bulls fans want Dosunmu to start. We saw it last year. And guess what? Dosunmu and Coby White looked like a pretty damn solid backcourt together when they were out there. They look like a solid backcourt. You can't take that away from them. But here's the thing. If Dosunmu was going to want to start on this team, he's going to have to play better. And so right now, if we're judging by play on the court, saying that Dosunmu should start while averaging 4.3 points per game, while shooting the ball, some of the worst splits of his NBA career, Dosunmu's hitting the ball at 24% from the field and 6.3% from 3-point. He is averaging less than a 3-point made. He's averaging 0.3 3-pointers made per game, but he's taking 5 of them per game, right? That's not starter level. Like, if we say everything got to be earned, listen, Josh Giddey's averaging 15 points per game right now. And it's not perfect. Be clear. Josh Giddey's terrible defensively. Absolutely god-awful defensively. But he's shooting the ball 48% from the field, almost 50%. And he's shooting the ball, guess what? 44% from 3-point range, taking 3 of them per game. I get why people are not enamored with Josh Giddey. I want to be clear there. Josh Giddey's not the player to be overly head over heels enamored with right now with what he played. But I think it's just people got to realize your own personal bias. You are going off your own personal bias with Josh Giddey if you're saying right now that anybody's playing better than Josh Giddey as far as that's going to be out there every day. Lonzo Ball isn't even shooting the ball as well as he has before. But again, that's not to be expected from Lonzo. Dosunmu, if he's going to want that chance to start, if he's going to want Billy Donovan and his coaching staff to open their eyes to needing to make a change at the point guard position, he's going to have to just play better. And it's not that he's not getting minutes still. He's getting minutes on this team, right? So Dosunmu is averaging less than 1.3 minutes less than Josh Giddey. He's having the exact same opportunities that Josh Giddey is having, and Josh Giddey is playing better than him right now. Now, the question is that going to maintain? That's the question there, right? And I've said it on yesterday's episode. Is Ayo playing badly because of role, right? Maybe his role is better suited there next to Coby White, playing a better complementary role rather than him being the anchor off that bench. Maybe there's that, right? Maybe it's position. Dosunmu played a lot of 2 and a lot of 3 last year. He's playing more point this year. Maybe there's that, right? So there are things. I'm not just outwardly saying Io sucks. No, because I think some players need time and they need rhythm, right? And we'll see if he's playing a different role. His role changed yet again, right? So that's the thing that you got to look at for it. And right now, I'll say this. And I know this isn't going to be popular, but right now, if you're judging by the play on the basketball court, on both sides of the ball, because clearly, if you're judging by defense, Dosunmu defensively is gonna mop the floor with Josh Giddey every single day. Dosunmu's worst defensive game is probably better than Josh Giddey's best defensive game. That's just who they are as players, right? And maybe one would say, well, we need that balance of defense in that starting lineup. You could say that, and if you make that argument, that is the argument to make right now if you're trying to make an argument for Dosunmu starting, right? But at the end of the day, Io is going to have to be better, regardless of whatever his role is. We need better from Dosunmu. We need better from Josh. This isn't a Josh Giddey glazing session either, because we need better from Josh Giddey. But I'm just saying that based off the play on the basketball court, I think people need to open their eyes to be a little bit more objective by what they're seeing rather than them just not liking a player, right? And we'll see what happens along that and see what the story develops for that over the season. But the Bulls got a game tonight. The Bulls take on the Memphis Grizzlies tonight on the Grizzlies' home court. The Bulls play a lot of games on the road to start off the season. And what are going to be the keys? The keys for the Bulls are pretty much going to stay the same throughout the first week of this season. Got to limit the turnovers. That's one thing that I want to see you limit against. And the Memphis Grizzlies are a team that is one of the better offenses in the league. You got to give them credit for that. I think they're right now averaging the 5th most points in the league, averaging 119 points per game. But the thing where the Bulls can find their in at against the Memphis Grizzlies is, guess what? They're allowing 121 points per game. So this is going to be one of those games where which team steps up defensively. The Bulls are averaging giving up 119 points per game. So it's very similar there, right? And so if the Bulls can take advantage of the Memphis Grizzlies as of right now, weak defense, that's going to be something to see. But we know what the Grizzlies have as far as firepower on that team. Ja Morant is an absolute monster. And it's going to be really interesting to see how the Bulls guard Ja Morant, right? Especially with Josh Giddey in there as a starting point guard. Do you cross guard? What are you going to do there? You got Desmond Bane as well, who's averaging 18 points per game for them. Santi Aldama, who didn't get his rookie contract extension, is their 3rd leading scorer right now at 17 points per game also. Jaren Jackson Jr., only 1 game played. I don't think he's actually going to be active for this game. Let me double check. He actually does not show on the injury report. So Jaren Jackson Jr. is probably going to be playing in this game. That's going to be an interesting matchup with him and Zach Edey as the power forward and center. What does Vooch and P. Will do, and Julian Phillips when he's out there? Ja Morant is listed as day-to-day, so we'll see if he ends up playing in this game for the Grizzlies. Probably going to play unless they just look at it and say, we're facing the Bulls. We got enough to do it without the Bulls, which unfortunately is also a possibility, right? So the Bulls their offense has to be sound. You do not want to allow this Memphis Grizzlies team to get out and get a bunch of turnovers against you. And that's anybody. The Bulls just got to learn to limit the turnovers in general. If you can't limit those turnovers, you're going to get your ass kicked in most games. So you got to do that. I think the Bulls got to lock in there as far as turnovers, and they got to play to their strengths. One of the things that was a strength in that Bulls win against the Bucks is spreading out the offense and rebounding. The Bulls are the 3rd best rebounding team in the league right now. They're averaging 51 rebounds per game, which is only behind the Charlotte Hornets and the Golden State Warriors. So they have those angles to do so far, right? They got that. They got to play towards their strength. They got to spread the ball out. They got to get everybody involved. You got to do those things. The Zach Edey, Nikola Vucevic matchup is going to be interesting to watch, but it's also going to be an important one in this game as well. Because if Vooch can give the rookie a welcome to the NBA moment as far as how strenuous this game's going to be, that goes a long way in helping the Bulls as well. So the Bulls got to be locked in. They got to be engaged. You got to see what this team is going to bring, man. And you got to be sound defensively. You cannot fall asleep defensively, especially against this Memphis Grizzlies team, because, hey, this is a Grizzlies team that can get in rhythm shooting the 3 ball. And if they do, again, they're not a great 3-point shooting team. They sit around 10th in the league, but they're still taking over 35 3-pointers per game. And we know that this Bulls team has historically given up more than what a team's average. So look out for that as well. This is going to be a really fun game to watch. We'll be live here on the channel, as we are during, after, and in the middle of every game. So make sure you guys stay in tune with us for that. But that's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that's thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.